Liha was a sniper in the army. On one occasion, a foolish teammate threw an ammo box, robbing Liha of his ability to walk. As if destined, he was introduced to a virtual reality game that promised the ability to earn real money to cover his daily expenses. And it was surely destiny that set Liha up, as upon entering he still became a sniper, albeit only allowed to use a gun from the era when Napoleon hadn't even bothered to wear pants. Let's see how Liha's journey in this game world unfolds with Pi right now. On the training ground, a young man lies still, concentrating on a target through the scope atop his sniper rifle. Being a marksman requires relatively strict standards. First, one must have sharp eyes followed by a steady finger, and one thing that is absolutely indispensable is a level of patience far beyond that of an ordinary person. To comment on that young man's shooting skills, perhaps using the title Shooting God, would be the only way to properly describe it. The target he hit was as small as a regular sheet of paper, yet he could still accurately shoot through the bullseye without being off by a single millimeter. This young man is a soldier, a sergeant with the name Liha. To be honest, he was extremely confident in his own accuracy, and with skills as high as his, that confidence is understandable. Liha's teammate even joked and asked how many targets he had missed so far. But this was a difficult question. Liha felt it would be very strange if he couldn't hit the target during practice. Simply put, he had never missed before, which left his teammate speechless. Soon Liha would have a sniping competition. But as for the specific content of the competition and who his opponent was, Liha couldn't care less. He only knew that his opponent was a former Special Forces Marine. While transporting ammunition and chatting, it's unclear what was going through Liha's teammate's mind as he tossed an ammo box towards him as if passing a box of cookies. And what had to happen, happened. The ammo box exploded into pieces. Luckily, Liha was still breathing, but unfortunately, his teammate's foolish prank was sure to get him paralyzed. After a severe injury, Liha could no longer move, and with that, his military career came to an end. Liha tried his best to regain his ability to walk, but all his efforts seemed to be in vain. While drowning in despair, a hand suddenly reached out and pulled Liha up. Liha escaped that pit of hopelessness. But when he focused on his lower body, he no longer saw his legs. A mystical female voice spoke up, tempting Liha that if he just made a deal with her, Liha would have a chance to walk normally again. Liha hesitated, not fully trusting her, but he still decided to try touching the girl to see what would happen. Surprisingly, he suddenly sat up, as if everything before was just a dream. Next to Liha now was a teenager known to be Liha's cousin, who said he had just moved Liha and this guy didn't react at all. It was only then that Liha noticed he was sitting in a rather fancy capsule, and it was a popular virtual world gaming device. The cousin said that the family had bought this device for Liha at a price that was not cheap at all, but that wasn't the issue. This device could help Liha feel what it's like to walk again. Besides, he could also earn money in the game, so he shouldn't overthink it and just get into the game. Before Liha could even process the situation, his consciousness was pulled into the game. After a series of system sounds and eye-straining graphics appeared, Liha felt himself being thrown into a free fall into some unknown area. First, Liha looked around to see what godforsaken place he had been thrown into. Then he was startled to find that he could stand on his own 2 feet. A light flashed, and then a girl with pinkish-red hair appeared. Liha didn't care much about the girl who had just appeared. What he cared about was why he felt so cool. Looking at himself, it was clear that Liha was completely naked, so he quickly curled up to cover his family jewels. The red-haired girl didn't seem to mind much. She said she had seen plenty of a man's hot weapon before. Only players from Asia like to cover themselves up like this. Liha immediately concluded that the girl in front of him was an AI, and she confirmed that his guess was correct. The girl reminded Liha to set up his character's name and appearance to prepare to enter the central world. Liha didn't think too much, and immediately chose his real name, and his displayed appearance was also based on his real-world self. He wanted to be himself and stand up again and to experience what interesting things this game world had to offer. The girl didn't object to Liha's wish, only saying she hoped to see him again soon before throwing Liha from the sky to the ground. Liha was about to scream his throat hoarse. In just a short time, he had to experience the feeling of free-falling twice. Suddenly, A strong light flashed, and by the time Liha regained his composure and looked again, he found himself safely on the ground, no longer flying through the air. Before his eyes was the scene of a village with a medieval style, with countless people scattered about doing their own work. He almost couldn't believe this was a game, because the graphics were too realistic. Liha recalled his earlier conversation with the AI game master. She had confirmed once again whether he really wanted to create a character identical to his real-world self. Because in this game world, Liha could use any kind of appearance he wanted, even molding himself into a handsome, radiant heartthrob. But Liha flatly refused. He had no intention of cosplaying and admiring himself, so just using his real identity to log into the game was fine. However, in the eyes of that AI girl, this meant that Liha was extremely confident in his appearance. The type of person who is always an egoist. Liha shouted to affirm that he wasn't that narcissistic. It's just that he wanted to feel the sensation of moving on his own 2 feet with his own body once again. Liha swung his leg to try a roundhouse kick. In short, although he was a paralyzed young master in real life, his previous skills were still very proficient. Just as Liha was so moved he was about to cry from being able to move freely again, a voice startled him. He said that he had met many people in this place called Candole Castle, but this was the first time he had seen someone so easily satisfied just by logging into a game like Liha. He introduced himself as a guide to help players adapt to the world of Middle-earth, and from Liha's perspective, he was the starting NPCE. Seeing Liha looking very serious and wanting to listen to the basic instructions for new players, the other guy didn't hesitate to spill it all out. First, there is a stamina stat here, which means a person cannot operate continuously for a long period. Certainly when stamina hits rock bottom, you'll be panting like a bull. Next, the guy pointed to a village girl who happened to be passing by and gave an insanely messed up suggestion that Liha should go and grope her. Whoa, hold on, something's not right here. Without much thought, Liha immediately grabbed the NPCE by the neck. This guy is so insolent, daring to entice Liha to sexually harass someone. I'll report you to the police and have you locked up right now. That NPCE guy immediately acted very proper, as if the words he just said didn't come from his mouth, affirming that in this Middle-earth, sexual harassment is against the law. Liha felt that if he had just blindly followed that NPCE's words, he would have been in deep trouble for sure. This guy was trying to set him up. The guide, NPCE, praised Liha for grasping information very well, then declared the new player tutorial complete and took off. As he ran off, he even muttered about it being a pity. Don't tell me this guy was really planning to harass that girl. Liha no longer cared about that new player guide. He aimed straight north and headed in that direction. He bolted like a horse escaping its stable and ran like crazy. It had been a very long time since Liha had enjoyed the feeling of running on his own 2 feet like this. Liha ran, parting the crowds around him, running to the point where he even acquired a skill. Liha unlocked his first passive skill in this world. It allowed him to run continuously for 5 minutes without consuming stamina, and on top of that, his running speed was also slightly increased. Liha ran straight to the new player training camp, a place that gave him a very familiar feeling, the feeling of returning to a military training camp. Countless young men and women were here swinging the wooden swords in their hands at the dummies in front of them. Liha joined in as well, grabbing a wooden sword and swinging a powerful slash at the dummy before him. Was that wooden dummy a living thing or something? It even knew how to silently curse. Damn humans, why does it hurt so much when you hit me? Liha didn't care much about that. What he cared about was that it seemed this world even had a combat support system, as his strike felt noticeably more powerful. But the strange thing was that it seemed only Liha had this dirty buff, while the other new players were very awkward in executing their attacks. Liha thought to himself to act as if he were fighting in the real world, and then unleashed an incredibly powerful horizontal slash. His slash was too overpowered. What kind of new player could break a wooden sword and the dummy in half with one strike? The other newbies gathered around, wanting to know the secret to how Liha could deliver such a powerful blow. But how could he possibly explain it? He just randomly said it was luck to get it over with quickly. Liha's new player tutorial was now complete. Next up was the class selection part. The AI girl put on an extremely surprised look at how quickly Liha had completed the new player tutorial. Next, she displayed a myriad of all sorts of swords, spears, staffs, and other weapons for Liha to choose from. Liha noticed a magic staff. It seemed to be the most logical long-range attack weapon in this world. Just as Liha was about to pick up the magic staff, the AI girl told him to calm down and not to decide so quickly but to take a good look first. She said to look around, but her clear purpose was for Liha to see the sniper rifle hovering above her head. And that rifle was clearly being secretly pushed out by a demoness for Liha to see. So in a world full of hacking, slashing, and magic, a young man who plays with guns appears. And for example, if this gun were to be evolved to be overpowered, would it be a story of all beings are equal, but I am more equal? Liha wasn't too thrilled to see a gun here, because that rifle was an antique, just a musket, nothing special. As far as Liha knew, this thing was created even before Napoleon. It would probably be valuable if put on display. However, Liha also wanted to try this thing out to see if it was any good before deciding further. The AI girl agreed immediately, providing a full combo from gunpowder to bullets and a ramrod for Liha to try. Liha activated the combat assist feature, started pouring gunpowder, then inserted a metal ball, and then used the ramrod to poke and prod the bullet into the right chamber. Fumbling through these steps took a whole minute, and on top of that, this musket was insanely heavy. Liha raised the gun into a shooting stance and fired an iron candy towards a target 40 meters away. After firing the bullet, the smoke released was enough to turn Liha into smoked meat. And what's more, he missed a target that was only 40 meters away. Liha couldn't believe his aiming skills could have gotten so rusty. He had to try again to be sure. But damn, the fact that it takes a whole minute to prepare for one shot is really exhausting. Liha tried checking out other long-range weapons, but there was only a bunch of bows and crossbows. Although the damage of these ranged weapons wasn't very high, at least their firing speed was decent. But as for the musket in Liha's hands, it's one shot per minute, and you can be sure someone will fall. You just don't know if it will be the enemy or yourself. It's all because of that combat assist balancing system. Liha asked about turning this system off, but the AI adamantly refused. If not, then whatever, Liha decided to log out of the game to find ways to improve this gun's mobility first, then choose a character class later. But that wasn't allowed either. Logging out is not permitted during class selection. Damn it, this is forcing someone too much. Liha is playing this game to earn money, not to chill. He made a difficult choice to forget about the sniper class and play as a mage to be safe. At that moment, Liha's body was sucked into a vortex and then thrown out into the real world. It was his mother who came into the room to check on him, but seeing him groaning so much, she pulled the plug on the game console. This is what you call a forced logout, isn't it? Luckily, Liha didn't just vanish like those guys in some online sword-fighting story. The problem was that the AI had warned that logging out during class selection was impossible, which made Liha a little worried about what his character class would be. Looking it up online, he saw that logging out during class selection always resulted in being thrown into some crappy class, and deleting a character to start over would be very time-consuming. Liha consoled himself that since he had touched the magic staff before being thrown out of the game, it should be fine, but it was a cruel twist of fate. Heaven had decreed, or perhaps it was that demoness's will, that Liha had to take that musket and go fight monsters. At this point, there's no turning back. Liha had no choice but to accept his fate. The introductory skill only increased reloading speed and the hit rate through extensive gun practice. In addition, Liha also had a support skill to summon a bayonet in emergencies to engage in a bloody battle with the enemy. Just when Liha wanted to hate the whole world, someone else came looking for him, probably wanting to volunteer as a punching bag. The person who arrived was the guide NPCE from before. He appeared to assign the new player quest. The quest was very simple. Liha just had to go outside the city and catch a dozen rabbits, and that was it. The mission seemed extremely easy until Liha identified his first target and then reloaded his gun. After a minute of fumbling, he managed to fire an iron candy towards the monstrous rabbit in the distance, but he only hit its belt. The rabbit went berserk and immediately lunged towards Liha, who was fumbling to reload. Before the bullet was even loaded, the rabbit had already delivered a gut-wrenching kick to Liha. With his 7 proficiency sniper experience, Liha immediately sped up to increase the distance from the rabbit. However, that creature proved to Liha that no matter how fast he ran, when it came to short-distance sprints, Liha was no match. The rabbit gathered power in its leg and kicked Liha with a blow that hurt as much as a gunshot. After that, he was pinned down and beaten by this rabbit in front of the bewildered eyes of the other new players doing quests nearby. Liha was also beaten so badly he couldn't move and was forced to play dirty. The gun in his hand was no longer used for shooting, but for bashing directly in the face. Liha chose the right moment and swung his gun like a pestle, sending the bruised rabbit flying far away. After all, a gun isn't just for shooting. Liha continued to use the gun butt to strike the monstrous rabbit, but this time it dodged with incredible ease. The rabbit then delivered a kick that dislocated Liha's jaw. But in return, Liha also took this opportunity to land a blow right on the head of that tough rabbit. Watching a man and a rabbit go at it, the surrounding players were left speechless. It was the first time they'd seen someone with a gun in hand engage in close combat with an opponent. After a messy brawl, Liha finally managed to catch the first rabbit, but he hadn't even landed a single shot yet. The one-shot, one-kill introduction for this flintlock must have been wrong. Liha really wanted to blame it on these rabbits being too tough, which was why he was struggling so much. However, right next to him was a new player girl with a sword beating those rabbits, like they were nothing, which made Liha feel a bit awkward. He didn't know if the system was discriminating against him or what, but he was determined not to surrender to fate. He had to show the system what a 7 proficiency sniper was all about. Liha returned to the real world and then went on the forums to do some research. This flintlock from before Napoleon's time had decent kinetic energy, and all but its accuracy was just too questionable. The maximum range this thing could achieve was up to 350 meters. It's just that with a rate of 1 shot per minute and only a 50% hit rate, it was a bit of a challenge. Just as Liha was wondering whether he should rifle the barrel himself to make it more accurate, his mother came in. Liha's mother was overjoyed to see her son looking much more cheerful. She felt she should have bought this game console sooner. After saying goodbye to his mother, Liha decided to go back into the game to continue grinding for money. The in-game currency could be exchanged for real-world value, and it wasn't a small amount either. In the new player rabbit hunting area, a few players were startled by the occasional sound of a gunshot. Liha practiced until he was sweating bullets, and finally managed to shorten his reloading time by 3 seconds. A good effort. Liha paid no mind to the gossip around him. First, he just focused on shooting. Liha had begun to figure out the appropriate distance for accurate shooting. After some practice, it was time for Liha to get into real combat to gain experience. Liha adjusted bit by bit to find his most suitable shooting position, then immediately fired as soon as the monstrous rabbit in front of him lifted its head. Gunpowder smoke billowed up again, making Liha unsure if he had hit the target, but he had a very good feeling about this shot. But life is not like a dream. Liha's fate was sealed to be beaten to a pulp. The bullet only grazed the rabbit's leg, which successfully enraged the creature. Immediately, Liha had to use his gun butt to fight this damn rabbit in a very brutal way. After 49 such attempts, Liha finally succeeded in hunting his first rabbit by actually shooting it, not by clubbing it with his gun butt. Just for killing a rabbit with a bullet, Liha was rewarded with an achievement with a ridiculously long and cool-sounding name at that. On the Hall of Fame list, Liha was the 3rd person to possess this title, proving it must be quite rare. But the next system announcement was a bit confusing. It reported that the flint on Liha's flintlock was broken. It was probably because he used the gun butt to hit monsters' heads too much that the flint broke. Liha hadn't even fired that many bullets for the flint to break so quickly. Liha was at a dead end. He could only continue to use his gun butt to club rabbits. Word spread far and wide about a sniper who specialized in close combat with rabbits using his gun butt, and people affectionately gave Liha the nickname Bloody Buttstock. Every time he used a bullet, Liha had to spend a whole minute preparing, and even then a hit wasn't guaranteed. It was faster for him to just pick up the gun butt and engage in close combat with the rabbits. Through this rabbit hunt, Liha also accumulated enough experience to level up. After receiving a shower of encouragement from a crowd of nobodies who appeared out of nowhere. Liha quickly turned in his rabbit hunting quest so he could go shopping a bit later. The old NPC who gave out the rabbit-catching quest even slyly remarked that catching those rabbits must have been a breeze and asked if he wanted to go catch more. But Liha respectfully declined. He'd had more than enough of a beating. After turning in the rabbit skins to this NPC, Liha still had a backpack full of rabbit meat left. He certainly couldn't throw it away, so he immediately took the fresh, albeit slightly bruised from the gun butt ingredients over to the restaurant owner, Madame Lu. Madame Lu immediately tempted Liha with a small quest. She had a quest to make grilled meat. For this quest, the ingredients were also just rabbit meat, but one component was black rabbit, which Liha needed to go hunt for. According to Madame Lu, black rabbits were still rabbits, but their meat was tastier. Liha probably hadn't learned his bloody lesson from brawling with the rabbits as he accepted this quest immediately. Madame Lu's face was menacing, her hand gripping a knife as she threatened Liha. Not to even think about bringing back fake meat to pass off. She knew how to skewer him. Even if Liha had 100 livers, he probably wouldn't dare to cheat. To go rabbit hunting first, Liha needed to restock on ammunition. Liha confidently walked into the shop and loudly asked to buy a 7-shot combo, but who would have thought the price would be sky high? That's why in this game probably only Liha still used a shotgun. Firing a single bullet cost a fortune. At this rate, going rabbit hunting with a gun would only lead to a loss. But Liha had already accepted the quest and didn't dare to run away. He was sure that if he tried to be sneaky, Madame Lu would definitely skewer him. Liha bit the bullet and bought 7 rounds, then tried to sweet-talk the weapon shop owner into giving him a quest to make up for the loss. But unfortunately, there were no quests. At this moment, a new question popped into Liha's head. Perhaps a certain condition needed to be met for the NPC's quest to be activated. But setting that aside for a moment, Liha's stomach was growling loudly. A debuff effect also appeared, forcing him to eat something before he could continue fighting. Liha went into the bakery and expressed his desire to buy a few pastries to fill his stomach. But the owner here said the shop was already closed. Only when Liha said he was getting it to go did the shop owner agree. In this world, you could buy things during the day anytime. But once night fell, all the shop owners closed their doors and turned off the lights in unison, probably to go party at a club. Liha wanted to buy a pastry and leave, but a problem arose. The pastries in the shop were more expensive than he could currently afford, specifically over 1 coin. The 1-coin pastry sold out too quickly. It was also because the rabbits were rampaging so much, making baking ingredients scarcer. Hearing this, Liha immediately thought that this was very likely an NPC hinting at a side quest. So the young man immediately boasted that he had taken down a good number of rabbits outside the city, asking what the baker thought about rewarding Liha with a few pastries. But the NPC here was strange. She got annoyed because dozens of strangers had been mumbling this to her all day. If she made a deal with Liha and he couldn't catch the rabbits, she would be at a loss. Liha immediately boasted that he had been hired by Madame Lu to get the meat of black-furred rabbits to increase his credibility, but it only made the baker girl laugh even more mockingly. Someone who could catch black-furred rabbits wouldn't be unable to afford a loaf of bread. That statement hit a nerve. Liha immediately took out a small, pungent pouch, so smelly it was deafening to prove he wasn't bluffing. The bakery owner identified the thing with this terrifying smell as something that could only be the work of Madame Lu. So the girl believed that Liha was really hunting black-furred rabbits and had a small quest she wanted to ask of him. It turns out that where the black-furred rabbits relieve themselves, a type of herb grows. This herb is very effective in enhancing the flavor of bread, but it probably doesn't enhance the smell of poop. The quest even involved risking his life. Liha really had to consider if his life was worth a pastry topped with something from rabbit droppings. As for the so-called black-furred rabbit, based on the description, it should probably be called a black bear to be accurate. Liha indicated he could accept the baker's quest, but he wanted to talk trash to get a loaf of bread to fill his stomach first. The baker girl threw a scornful look at Liha, then changed the quest conditions. It forced Liha to retrieve the ingredients within 12 hours, or Liha would be shunned by the village. Liha felt that this game was even crueler than the real world, but oh well, the bread was good. The good thing was that after haggling with the baker girl, Liha had acquired the skill of negotiating quests with NPCs. Just then, he passed by a group of people. They were recruiting. members to hunt black-furred rabbits together. This group sized Liha up and then sneered, thinking that a newbie with shabby gear like Liha couldn't do jack shit. Moreover, this group's quest was for the black rabbit's fur, which was completely different from Liha's quest line. This gave him the idea to stroll around the village to see if there were any other related quests he could grab all at once. After wandering around, Liha managed to find 3 more related quests. If he could just hunt the black-furred rabbit, his life would surely change. Liha didn't rush to find those giant bats. First, he took his gun to knock some small rabbits on the head to level up. After brawling hard all night, the kid finally reached level 5. But it seemed his gun butt was shaking and about to break. Just as Liha was about to pack up and leave, he heard a commotion from outside the bushes. It was the group that was recruiting members to hunt rabbits earlier, now getting their asses handed to them. One member of the group had already died, so now they could only rely on the mage for damage with the tank and healer holding the front line. Liha couldn't care less about how the battle outside was going. He was still leisurely analyzing the mage's attack speed. At this moment, the tank in that party had also been eliminated, and the one responsible was a giant rabbit, or perhaps it was a bear in rabbit's clothing. What's more, there wasn't just one, but a pair of them. Liha suddenly felt a chill. Getting kicked by a regular rabbit already bent his back. If these black-furred rabbits hit you, wouldn't your bones shatter like dust? Liha had accepted quests from 5 NPCs, and the quest descriptions all stated that if he didn't complete them, he would be shunned. Adding it all up, if Liha couldn't turn in these quests, he wouldn't need to return to the village anymore. Liha was confident that his shooting skills couldn't possibly be as crappy as they were now. So he decided to put all his points into the agility stat to find the most realistic gun-handling feeling possible. After he was done, Liha turned into a madman, brazenly standing up and calling for the 2 black-furred rabbits to come and exchange moves with him. Although Liha had put all his available points into agility, he still wasn't confident at all. If he missed, the whole group would be screwed. Just as Liha finished reloading in the nick of time, the 2 players being chased by the giant rabbit also changed direction and ran towards him, screaming their heads off. If both of them ran here, how could he save them? One person should lure a black-furred rabbit away first. That female mage was quite sharp-tongued, screeching and cursing at Liha, then arguing loudly with her priest teammate next to her. Liha's head was throbbing. Perhaps he should just shoot this shrew instead of the rabbit. But in the end, Liha still chose to ignore the curses. He calmed his mind and entered a state of readiness, waiting for the black-furred rabbit to get into a sure-shot range before pulling the trigger. The distance between Liha and the 2 rabbits was getting closer and closer. One rabbit had even pounced on the fleeing priest. Just as the remaining rabbit lunged to grab the female mage, Liha decided to fire. In short, Liha still decided to save the girl and not the guy. The iron candy he fired grazed the female mage's hair, then blew a giant hole in the rabbit's head. The sudden attack was so surprising that the female mage hadn't even processed what happened before the black-furred rabbit was already dead and gone. As for the other rabbit, it had pinned the priest down. This guy was definitely beyond saving. Liha couldn't reload in time, so first he grabbed the girl's hand and ran for it to be safe. The girl still hadn't recovered from Liha's powerful shot, and he didn't care about that. He just wanted to run far away to find reinforcements to buy time to reload. Who would have thought that after running just a short distance, the monstrous rabbit would abandon the priest's body and switch its target to them? They ran for their lives, just as a girl appeared in front of them and seemed to be about to unleash a move. The girl running with Liha immediately sensed something was wrong and quickly jumped on him, pushing Liha to the ground. Luckily, the 2 of them managed to get down and dodge in time. Otherwise, the ice spears created by the newly appeared girl would have turned them into beehives, not the rabbit behind them. The ice spears plunged into the rabbit's body, and in an instant, the creature was frozen into an ice statue. Seeing this, the female mage quickly asked for Liha's name to form a party link. Next, she used her magic to create a giant fireball and hurled it straight at the head of the frozen black-furred rabbit. By having formed a party, Liha also received experience from defeating the powerful rabbit, successfully leveling up. Liha didn't get a share of that burnt rabbit as it was hunted by the 2 female mages. However, the rabbit he had shot himself was entirely for Liha to handle. After collecting all the necessary quest materials, Liha just wanted to leave, but the two female mages kept following him relentlessly. The red-haired girl introduced herself as Im Hwayan, and the girl who had just shot the ice spear was Im Hwajong. Rumor has it this girl was quite famous. What a joke! Why should Liha care who those two girls were? Business was done, so everyone should just go home. Just then, Im Hwajong spoke up, reminding him that there were herbs growing nearby. Hearing about herbs, Liha immediately remembered the baker's quest, but he couldn't go collect the herbs openly. The bakery owner had strictly warned him not to let anyone else know the origin of the herbs. If they knew the bread they were eating had toppings from rabbit droppings, the shop would go out of business. Liha broke out in a sweat. If the origin of the herbs was revealed, the quest would fail. Im Hwayan had no clue what the hell the herbs were, but Im Hwajong knew it was a quest item, and even knew that Liha was looking for it. Im Hwajong said that it was fine to tell other players about the herb, but another reason Liha didn't want to say anything was the fear of having his quest item stolen. Hwajong was a bit curious. She didn't understand how Liha could take down a black-furred rabbit in one shot, which was also something Hwayan couldn't comprehend. Logically, that powerful rabbit shouldn't have been so easy to take down. Just as Liha was about to come up with an excuse, a flood of notifications suddenly appeared, making him pause. Liha had received a new achievement for successfully hunting a black-furred rabbit, and it was a one-hit, one-kill at that. The system was making enticing offers for Liha to move to a new area to play, leaving this place for the newbies to farm. Putting that aside, Liha, along with Hwayon and Hwajong, returned to the tavern for a grand feast to celebrate being alive to come back and complete the quest like this. Liha was a bit curious, wondering what was so special about Hwajong that even the NPCs were so respectful to her. Actually, it was nothing special. It was all based on her true strength. Hwajong was a top 5 player in Asia and a top 9 player in the world. With such a reputation, even the NPCs had to be respectful. Hwayon seriously introduced herself again, saying she was a fire mage player while Hwajong was an ice mage. It was unknown if they were sisters. Hwayon was really curious. She didn't understand how Liha could take down that black-furred rabbit in just one hit. Hwajong, on the other hand, recited Liha's information fluently as if she had bought the information from the system or something. But the fact that a level 5 Liha could defeat a black-furred rabbit was truly hard to believe. Theoretically, to one-shot that rabbit one would need to be at least level 90. Therefore, it was certain that Liha had been lucky enough to trigger a critical hit earlier, which caused the rabbit's sudden death. After some discussion, Hwayon and Hwajong decided to invite Liha to join their force. Although Hwayon was just a weak newbie, the leader of the force was Hwajong, a top 9 player in the world. Regardless of Liha's low level and his shabby gear, Hwajong's group insisted on inviting him to join their force. It sounded tempting, but Liha flatly refused. The conditions were too good, which made him suspicious. Even if Hwajong's force was ranked extremely high in the world, Liha was in no hurry. He wanted to find out more first. Hwayon also knew she couldn't push him too hard, so she had to give Liha time to think. Before leaving Hwajong, affectionately called Liha Big Brother, and then said she'd see him later. This made Liha a bit flustered. For a homebody who had only ever interacted with men his whole life, and in the military at that, being an only child in his family, he had no idea what it felt like to have a younger sister. Setting that aside for a moment, Liha first had to turn in his quest. He went to the jewelry store, first handed over the black-furred rabbit's eye ring to the shopkeeper, gaining a large amount of intimacy and a 90-coin reward. Next was the weapon shop. Then the clothing store. After turning in quests for a while, he had already reached level 7. At least after turning in the quest at the clothing store, Liha was able to change out of his beginner's clothes into a slightly better quality outfit. When he went to the bakery, the female owner was extremely friendly and pulled him inside. She even offered him a sample of pastry, which startled Liha a bit. This must be the result of gaining intimacy with the NPCs by turning in quests. The bakery owner received the herbs from the rabbit droppings and acted as if it were something sacred. It made Liha question his existence, wondering if sprinkling this on a pastry would actually make it taste good. The last place Leah went to turn in a quest was Madame Lu's eatery. As soon as he walked in, she already knew Leah had come to turn in a quest. News of Leah's successful hunt of the black-furred rabbit had already spread throughout the castle, so Madame Lu had no reason to doubt the quality of the meat Leah brought back. Poor free-to-play kid. It was so hard to hunt one of those powerful black-furred rabbit bosses, yet after turning in the quest chain, he only earned a few hundred coins, which was pathetically little. Just then, Madame Lu suggested giving Leah another quest. This time she wanted the meat of a golden eagle that lived behind the mountain. But something was off. That eagle looked like a phoenix. Was Madame Lu planning to make some fancy peacock and phoenix dish to treat her customers? What made it even worse for Leah was that he was only level 7, yet the quests he received were all about hunting terrifying monsters. Leah was a bit confused. Why were all of Madame Lu's quest rewards lunchboxes? Was it because the eatery had a full stock of inventory or something? Madame Lu explained that Kandal Castle was just in a remote, secluded area. If one wanted to advance to a more high-end area, one needed superior strength, and Madame Lu's high-class eatery items were the necessary support items. As for the reward for the black-furred rabbit hunting quest, Leah also received a special lunchbox made from its meat. But this lunchbox was anything but ordinary. After eating it, you could permanently increase your stat points. Moreover, this lunchbox was ranked as elite grade, so its effect was tripled. Leah was moved to tears again. With this item, he could sell it quickly and earn a cool 60 million money was coming in. But wait a minute, young man, money isn't that easy to make. This lunchbox was considered a special category item and could not be traded. Although it was very heartbreaking that it couldn't be exchanged for real money, at least after eating this lunchbox, Leah's stats would be significantly improved. As for the quest to catch the golden eagle, Leah certainly couldn't refuse. That golden eagle lunchbox might be tradable, and if not, it could still be eaten to increase stats. The level of the golden eagle lunchbox was even rated higher than the black-furred rabbit meat lunchbox. It was certainly extremely valuable. After turning in all the quests, Leah had reached level 8. He would do a few more minor quests to get to level 10, then figure out how to catch the eagle. The kid also took out the rabbit meat lunchbox to try it, and who would have thought one bite, and he was crying his eyes out. Leah would have to thank the creator of this game. It was the first time he had ever tasted such a delicacy. On top of that, it even gave Leah a stat boost, making the kid fantasize about having to hunt a few more black-furred rabbits. After finishing his meal, it was time to go hunting, but wait first. Leah needed to go pay tribute to the ammunition shop. The kid secretly hoped that with his increased intimacy, the general store owner would welcome him warmly. But who would have thought all he got was the owner's disdainful attitude? And on top of that, he was determined not to give Leah a discount. After all, in this beginner village, no one else played with guns like Leah, so business was slow. It would be strange if this general store owner was friendly. If Leah spent all his money, he could only buy 37 sets of ammunition, but he couldn't do that. It seemed Leah would have to resort to clubbing eagles with his gun butt soon. Just as the kid was rummaging through his backpack to get money for ammo, a scent from his inventory bag wafted out, driving the shop owner crazy. The old man definitely smelled some very fragrant pastry. The moment it was mentioned, Leah understood immediately. The problem was definitely the herb-sprinkled pastry. I don't know what that herb was. Maybe it was sprinkled with drugs to make this NPC go so crazy. Seeing the shop owner's drooling craving expression, Leah offered to sell the pastry for 5 silver coins. Hearing the price, the old owner immediately turned away and refused. But it was clear he couldn't resist the undeniable allure of this pastry. Leah activated his haggling skill and immediately poked the old shop owner. The old shop owner couldn't hold back anymore and offered 2 silver coins for the pastry. But there was no way in hell Leah would accept that price. Either pay him 5 silver coins or cough up 100 sets of ammunition. The old shop owner couldn't accept that price, but he also couldn't resist the temptation of the pastry, so he haggled it down to 70 sets of ammunition. Leah temporarily accepted. After all, he had already made a huge profit. After that, Leah logged out of the game to recharge a bit and also to see how difficult the eagle hunting quest was. Leah had intended to turn on the news to catch up on world events, but what the hell now? Even the news was reporting information from the game world of Middle-earth. There were rumors that the world-class player Im Hwajong had appeared in the beginner village in the game. What's more, her force Lam Long was even ranked as the top 2 in Hong Kong. This news just came out, making Liha want to go silent. According to the information, Hwajong brought Hwayan to the beginner village to look for some Korean player, and that Korean player who was only level 8 had dared to be arrogant and ignore the Hwajong sisters earlier. What made it even worse for Liha was that information about the player Hwajong had approached had also been leaked, a player wielding a weapon like a shotgun. That's it, in the entire beginner village probably only Liha used a gun, and now with the news spreading like wildfire, how could he dare to go back into the game? A video of Liha meeting the Hwayan Hwajong sisters was all over the internet. In just a moment, it had over 1 million views and tens of thousands of comments. However, the video quality was quite blurry, and people were skeptical about the accuracy of the information that Hwajong had sought out and recruited a Korean player. Some believed it was some high-ranking Korean player joining a Hong Kong force, perhaps because they were less exploitative. And then there were those who only noticed the Korean person sitting opposite the Lam sisters, because at a glance, his outfit was just too shabby. Liha was at a loss for words. The online community was trashing his newbie status and his musketeer class, who carried a shotgun, saying it was a complete mess. Setting that aside, Liha also did some research on the Lam family's Lam Long force. If he joined, he would surely rise as fast as a kite in the wind, but the treatment conditions were too good, which made him suspicious. Liha felt it was still better to grind levels on his own. Liha returned to the game, quickly turned in the quest to hunt a large pack of foxes, and successfully increased his intimacy with the NPCs in this beginner area quite a bit. Liha was still a bit disappointed because this quest wasn't enough for him to level up, when immediately the NPC uncle opposite him prompted him with the next quest. Liha knew all about this quest because he had researched it online beforehand. It was just about hunting wolves. Completing the quest would earn Liha a weapon repair discount coupon, which was perfectly timed because his gun butt was about to fall off. The kid quickly went to the area with wolves, but hunting here required a party. Otherwise, he could be wiped out at any moment. But Liha was just afraid that if he joined a party by the time he finished reloading, his teammates would have already finished off the wolves. Liha still felt that hunting alone would be better, although the danger was a bit higher. Liha lay flat on the ground and crawled around looking for a lone wolf, and just then he heard the sound of chanting magic somewhere nearby. It was a party coordinating to hunt wolves. Honestly, Liha was quite envious watching them. Liha quietly left the spot of the hunting party, and not long after, he also found a target for himself. Liha reloaded with great skill, but this time, he didn't use the ramrod. Instead, he blew into the barrel and then slammed the gun butt on the ground. This trick was a little something Liha had just learned online, which allowed him to reload a bit faster. Liha controlled his breathing, then pulled the trigger. Immediately, the wolf took an iron candy to the head and dropped dead. Unfortunately, before Liha could celebrate, another wolf appeared out of nowhere, baring its fangs and glaring at him. The situation was a bit tricky. If he ran, Liha definitely couldn't outrun it, and he wasn't sure how many more times he could use the gun butt before it broke. Out of options. Liha could only risk reloading at lightning speed and quickly aim the gun at the wolf. Luckily for Liha, the wolf didn't charge immediately. Instead, it chose to stalk around, slowly approaching him. Liha didn't know whether to call this wolf cunning or stupid, trying to dodge the bullet's path. But in truth, at this moment, Liha would have a tough time trying to accurately shoot that wolf. In a desperate situation, Liha decided to shoot, but with his mouth, after hearing a barrage of bang, bang, bang. The wolf thought its moment had come and immediately lunged at Liha. Pity the foolish wolf. The real attack was only unleashed now. Liha fired a bullet that turned the wolf into a donut. Just as Liha was excitedly sitting down to collect his spoils, a voice and a shadowy figure obscuring his back startled him. Liha turned his head to see a giant man and a green lizard looking at him. Liha screamed when he saw a giant and a lizard man standing behind him, so he didn't hesitate to quickly reload. Now it was the giant's and the lizard man's turn to scream. They were just players too. Liha shouldn't be so quick to attack. Liha understood the situation. In fact, he had seen introductions to these races on the game's homepage. It's just that meeting them for the first time was a bit startling. The lizard man displayed a very dangerous attitude and asked if Liha was hunting alone here. Liha didn't know what to say. The expression on this green lizardman's face was too fierce, but his way of speaking was clearly polite. The green lizardman moved his face closer and closer to Liha, tempting him that if their levels were similar, they should form a party to go hunting. The lizardmans and the giants group also had a quest to catch 3 wolves, but they were only level 9, so the task was a bit difficult. The lizard man had also figured out that it took Liha a whole minute to reload. During that time, if any reckless wolf charged at him, he would be dead. Liha also knew well that he had been lucky to hunt 2 wolves at once earlier, so he was very happy with the lizardman's party invitation. The lizardman immediately assigned himself as the bait to lure the wolves. Then the giant would be responsible for tanking, while the main damage would have to rely on Liha. The lizardman introduced himself as Bainim or Venuma, a poison user, and the giant was Jin Gong Gong. This name seemed familiar to Liha somehow. Liha looked at the crow on Jin Gong Gong's head and understood immediately. He was the guy who chose a giant, but ended up in the druid class. At this point, Jin Gong Gong also realized that Liha was also Korean. As for Venuma, he introduced himself as being from Vietnam Southeast Asian brothers for the win. Liha felt this party was weird as hell, but trying to cooperate once wouldn't hurt anything, so just go all out. From the very first coordinated move, you could already smell the drama here. Liha couldn't focus on loading his gun at all as Jin Gong Gong's crow kept chirping excitedly like a 3-year-old kid, which was hilarious. As for the young man, Venuma, his mouth kept spitting out green saliva. According to him, it was poison. Liha had to suppress his laughter at these new teammates, trying to calm his mind and aim his gun at a wolf that was attacking Gong Gong. A gunshot rang out and the wolf flew to a corner to meet its ancestors. The remaining wolf wanted to pounce on Gong Gong, but he clasped his hands together and brought them down on its head like a mace. As for the finishing blow, Venuma with a dagger in hand was ready. In the distance, another wolf was approaching the party. Liha immediately raised his gun and shot it, sending it flying. Thanks to the increase in his gun proficiency skill, Liha's accuracy had also improved significantly. This party was a bit unusual, but their hunting efficiency was top-notch. Liha also managed to reach level 9 because of it. Venuma tempted everyone not to rush to turn in the quest, but to grind their experience bar up to about 90%. Then turning in the quest would get them to level 10, and they could go hunt the golden eagle. With a quality party like this, Liha's group decided to stick together and continue farming monsters. Everyone around watched this party hunt and didn't know what to say. First, a giant stuck his face out for a wolf to bite, and then healed himself. Then a lizardman stuck his head out and drooled. No, he spat poison at the wolves. Finally, there was even a musketeer carrying a shotgun to send the wolves off to meet the king of hell. Although this group looked a bit weird, their hunting efficiency was terrifyingly good. While raiding Gong Gong suddenly noticed that Venuma could spit poison while moving. This wasn't ordinary poison spitting, but a form of magic casting. Speaking of which, Liha remembered that Imhwa Jung could also cast spells while moving, but she was ranked 9th in the world. Don't tell me this green lizard man in front of me is some bored, super powerful player who created a Smurf account to mess around. After a long day of farming monsters, the group sat down to chat and talk while healing. Right now, as long as all 3 of them reached level 10, they could go catch the golden eagle. The group partied until night, until Liha ran out of ammo before deciding to return to the village to restock. Liha took the spoils from the wolves to the NPC, successfully gaining enough experience to reach level 10, and at the same time, his notification board suddenly turned red. After completing the quest to eliminate the wolf pack and turning it in, Liha's intimacy with the NPCs in Kandal Castle reached 100%, thereby making him an honorary security officer in the Kandal Castle. That's why Liha's notification board suddenly turned bright red. Liha's fame on the continent increased by 30 points. His merit in the kingdom increased by 100 points, and he even got a free weapon repair. Liha quickly slipped away from the surrounding crowd, with Venuma and Gong Gong's group hastily following behind. Out on the deserted hill, Venuma explained that people had never seen a player gain fame before, so they were very curious. And it seemed no one had ever grinded their intimacy up to 100 like Liha either. Venuma explained that he had researched it online, which was how he knew about the effect that had just happened to Liha. According to what this lizard man knew, even completing all the quests could only get you up to 60% intimacy. Liha wasn't sure if he had done some hidden quest that others didn't know about, but at least he had achieved a worthy result after his efforts. Liha explained that perhaps because he had done the rabbit-catching quest since level 5, he was given preferential treatment. Hearing this, Venuma was so startled, he dropped his dagger. For Liha to be able to catch that powerful rabbit at level 5 was truly extraordinary. Liha went to restock his ammunition, then stopped by the place of the NPC uncle who usually gives out monster clearing quests to get the eagle hunting quest. From now on, when Liha does quests in Candle Castle, it no longer increases intimacy. Instead, it increases merit in the kingdom. The whole group was fully armed and ready. The quest had been accepted. All they needed to do was head straight for the mountain where the golden eagle lived. On the way, Liha's group encountered another party arguing with each other because their tank had died, causing the quest to fail. The argument escalated to a climax when these guys started screaming for each other's home addresses. Liha thought this group had too much time on their hands. Instead of arguing, wouldn't it be better to just find new teammates and be done with it? Passing by that group, a much larger group appeared in sight, but they were just trading items. Because groups without a good composition had to compensate with items, which was why this place was so lively. Liha was a little worried. A complete party going to fight the Golden Eagle got wiped out, so what could a ragtag party like his possibly accomplish? Venuma advised Liha not to overthink it. He had already planned everything. At the same time, Huayun was preparing to fight 3 wolves that were pouncing on her at once. Suddenly, Huazhong stepped in front of her sister, telling the newbie to save her strength. What was the point of fighting these puppies? With one basic move, Huazhong froze the pack of wolves, then leisurely approached and finished off the huskies with her spear. It seemed Huazhong was power-leveling her sister to do the golden eagle hunting quest outside the beginner village. Huazhong told her sister to prepare the most powerful fire spell she could. Then she began to unleash her ice power, aiming at an eagle in the sky and casting a blizzard skill. This area of effect attack turned the golden eagle into a broken-winged eagle, causing it to fall straight to the ground. The rest of Huayan's quest was simple. She just needed to use her magic to finish off the creature. At this time, Liha's group had also entered the golden eagle hunting grounds. Venuma proactively arranged the moves and positions of everyone. He was preparing to play some kind of trick. Venuma suddenly spat all over his body, then told Gong Gong to use his fallen object integration skin, while Liha hid carefully behind, and then went first. This was an area with fierce wolves, but Venuma asserted that those puppies wouldn't dare to charge. Liha didn't understand what Venuma was planning. They still had to face a huge number of monsters. As soon as the group saw the pack of wolves in the distance, the green lizardman fearlessly walked straight towards them. Surprisingly, when the wolves saw Venuma charging, they didn't attack. They just sniffed a few times, and then turned tail and went elsewhere. Venuma explained that the world in this game was simulated as closely as possible to reality, so it was certain that those wolves wouldn't eat something poisonous that could make them log out. As for Gong Gong, he had used fallen object integration, so he looked like a tree, while Liha was concealed by the poison's smell, so the wolves wouldn't notice. It must be said that Venuma's exploitation of the system's blind spots and his own and his teammates' strengths was brilliant as hell. Just then an incident occurred. The black crow, or rather, the flying panther, spread its wings and flew high, then squawked for Gong Gong to follow it. Thanks to this panther, the wolves had noticed Liha's group once again. The situation was not good at all. Liha's group was being watched by about 20 wolves. Gong Gong felt a great responsibility for this incident, so he volunteered to hold off the wolves to let Liha and Venuma escape. Gong Gong's spirit of taking responsibility and willingness to sacrifice was truly admirable, but Liha just needed to acknowledge it, not intending to leave him behind alone like that. Liha thought about how this place was simulated as closely to reality as possible, so there must be some loophole to save them all right now. Liha told Gong Gong not to attack the wolf pack. First, just let him play with 2 packets of gunpowder. Venuma didn't quite understand. Liha could only handle 1 at a time, and this time, if he didn't even use a bullet, what could he shoot? Liha could still shoot. Well, shooting loud was another thing entirely. Luckily, he had told everyone to cover their ears. After Liha's gunshot, a certain smell filled the air, causing the wolves to temporarily freeze in place, not moving a muscle. Liha quickly told his brothers to run. He had just created a layer of camouflage for everyone. As expected, Liha's group successfully escaped from the wolves without any harm, just a bit tired from running. Venuma now understood. Just now, Liha had chased the wolves away with the smell of gunpowder because this game simulated reality, so the sulfur smell of the gunpowder would surely make the wild beasts' noses go deaf. While Liha was checking his gun, Venuma asked him if he had ever played the game Middle-earth before. This was a bit weird. As Liha understood it, they were clearly in a game, so why was that lizardman asking such a dumb question? Luckily, Venuma didn't need to change the subject, because Gonggong had already saved the day. He wanted to call his panther crow back. Seeing Gonggong acting shy and unwilling to show his friends how to summon the crow back, Liha and Venuma became even more interested in seeing it. Gonggong knew he couldn't reason with these 2 teammates, so he had to endure the shame and perform the transformation pose to summon the crow. What else could he do? Gonggong's crow summoning dance was stupid as hell, especially when performed by a giant. But indeed, this druid's dance really worked. The panther crow had condescended to return. Next, Liha's group just needed to head straight towards the golden eagle. Nothing could stop them anymore. Liha looked up at the sky and was speechless at the creature flying there. Was that really a golden eagle? He broke out in a cold sweat. What kind of eagle was that demon flying in the sky? You could call it a light aircraft. Would high-level monsters in the future be as big as buildings? Each eagle's wingspan had to be tens of meters. Just looking at it made you want to get depressed, and he hadn't even seen any gold on it yet. Venuma reviewed the golden eagle's attack methods with his brothers one last time before the team officially entered the battle. Initially, the golden eagle would start with a surprise attack from the sky. For example, if that attack caught Liha, it was certain the kid would be torn in half by the eagle, so Liha had to hide well. In the next phase, the eagle would attack with sound waves. They would open their mouths and scream. Being hit by the sound waves would cause a dizzying sensation. But according to Venuma, just thinking you had a bone stuck in your throat would cure the dizziness. Specifically, eating an eagle and getting a bone stuck is what really works. When their stamina dropped below 30%, they would no longer be able to fly and would start to turn into chickens and attack on the ground. And this group wouldn't actively attack first, so Venuma would proactively go and lure the monsters here. But Liha stopped his lizardman friend. He would take the lead. This time, Venuma didn't quite understand. If this party lured the eagles one by one, they could still hunt them. So why did Liha have to risk shooting first? Liha didn't pay much attention to that. He was busy measuring the distance to the nearest eagle to shoot accurately. Although he was just showing off, he still warned that he might very well miss, so Venuma should just prepare himself. As for Gonggong, Liha wanted him to come over and crouch down to serve as a rest for his gun. And while being a support, remember not to breathe, so Liha's aim wouldn't be off. Liha focused, absolutely aiming at the eagle flying in the sky. After determining the right trajectory, he fired without hesitation. Right after the iron candy flew out of the gun, Liha immediately called on his brothers to prepare to face the eagle at any moment. But something was strange. Suddenly, an achievement notification popped up in front of Liha, which felt a bit off. Holy crap. Liha had taken down that golden eagle with just one shot. By taking down this eagle, Liha had leveled up again. At this point, there was nothing left to say. Liha was earning achievements as easily as eating candy, leaving Venuma and Gonggong speechless. Liha didn't care about those minor details. He was busy getting the eagle meat before the creature's body completely disappeared. The first achievement Liha collected was Bullseye Master, praising him for taking down a whole golden eagle with one iron candy. A reward was in order. The next achievement, Sniper, also gave Liha a large number of attribute points. Liha closed this panel and another one popped up, congratulating him for obtaining the Sniper achievement twice. Just one more collection, and Liha would be inscribed in the Hall of Honor. The stat buffs would be insane. The confrontation with the Golden Eagle ended as quickly as that. Liha's group had officially passed the beginner area. After returning to Candle Castle, Venuma still couldn't believe how Liha had managed to successfully take down the eagle with a single shot. The story here isn't about defeating the monster quickly or slowly, but the problem is that with his strength at level 10, there's no way he could have one shot, one killed that giant eagle. It was lucky he had teammates to witness it. Otherwise, Liha would surely have been suspected of hacking. Liha also wanted to know how he could have delivered such a critical hit. If he knew he would be completely confident in hunting powerful monsters to grind levels, Liha's group brought the spoils from the eagle back to the NPC uncle from before. Thanks to that, Liha leveled up again and his merit had increased to 300 points. Liha was also recommended to go to the Brown Beth Academy, which was the best place to train shotgun-wielding soldiers. In the end, this uncle even affectionately hugged Liha. This surprised both Liha and everyone around. They never expected an NPC to show such an expression. Next, Liha's group had to go their separate ways. Gong Gong had to go to the druid training place in the Emerald Forest, while Venuma's was the Poison Forest. As for Liha, he went to the city. It's unknown if this city slicker would forget his two forest-dwelling friends. After seeing his two friends off, Liha finally had some time alone to check his character status screen. Currently, the bonus points for his stats from achievements titles and eating various things had already reached over 100 points. Liha also had 40 unused attribute points, but he was in no hurry. He would save them for later. Liha also acquired a new skill that increased his stability before taking a shot, but the problem was, it didn't help much. Liha didn't stress about profiting from these things, so it was fine. First, he wanted to turn in his quests. Liha went to Madame Lu to deliver the eagle meat. This was what you call undeniable credibility, because Liha didn't want to be chopped up into sausage. Madame Lu first paid Liha in money, then told him to wait while she prepared a lunchbox from the eagle meat. While waiting, Madame Lu suggested Liha could meet the head chef Kim Eo once. He was sharpening his knife waiting to meet Liha. Suddenly, Liha felt a strange unease. Why did he need to sharpen a knife to meet him? This old chef looked at Liha and said, "Delicious meat when the thing he should have been admiring was the slab of meat on the table." Kim Eo hugged Liha tightly. He really liked this young man who always brought him delicious meat, and he suggested he wanted to teach Liha how to cook. Hearing the head chef's enticing offer, Liha knew this was unlocking a secondary skill for him, but to his knowledge, there was no chef class. The secondary professions were all related to combat. For example, a warrior becoming a blacksmith could choose between crafting weapons and forging basic weapons, and mages also had secondary professions, like weaving or tailoring cloaks. Cooking was similar to crafting, so it must belong to the production skill set. Liha had 2 slots to learn crafting skills, and if after learning to cook, he had the right to trade stat-boosting items like Madame Lu's lunchboxes, he would truly be rolling in it. At this point, what was there to think about? Liha decided to learn it right away. Head chef Kim Io was extremely pleased and gave Liha a special 1-day intensive cooking course experience. Just hearing about it was exhausting, and the head chef wouldn't get his hands dirty but would just stand to the side and instruct Liha. He believed that to learn cooking, one had to have practical experience to improve quickly. Actually, Liha was quite confident in his cooking, as he had done it during his time in the military, but the kid was thinking it was too easy. Kim Eo immediately went into Gordon Ramsay mode and started rapping, criticizing Liha's way of preparing ingredients. He didn't hesitate to trash Liha's cooking style as shat. Even a dog might turn its nose up at it. Then he criticized Liha's grilled dish, not because it was overcooked, but because it was too raw. Maybe if he called some priest over to cast a spell, Liha's roasted rabbit might even come back to life. Being yelled at by this old head chef made Liha go crazy. For example, would it be too weird if he just shot the NPC? At the end of the session, while waiting for the head chef to test his food, Liha thought to himself that if the old man dared to curse him one more time, he would pull out his gun and shoot, then log out of the game. But luckily for Liha, or for the head chef, he was extremely satisfied with the dish he presented, And just like that, Liha had acquired the cooking skill. When Liha managed to escape from that kitchen, the restaurant had also cleaned up and was ready to close. Madame Lu handed him the eagle meat lunchbox, not forgetting to boast that she had a quest for Liha. Madame Lu wanted Liha to accept a quest to escort a food box she had prepared to her cousin in the city, thereby opening the second branch of her restaurant in the capital. The reward for Liha in this quest was a bit vague. It was just an invitation to attend the restaurant's grand opening party. Liha felt something was off. This was the final quest of a chain, so why was the reward so pathetic, while the failure penalty was clearly severe? According to Madame Lu, this quest wasn't difficult at all. The only basic obstacle was people. Hearing that, Liha immediately imagined scenarios of being robbed on the road, robbed of both his goods and his life, which sent a shiver down his spine. But Madame Lu asserted that there was no such thing. Stop imagining things, young man. Liha calculated that walking straight to the capital would take 10 days. And if the road was not favorable, it would take half a month or even a whole month. However, he had to go anyway, because the training center was also in that capital. Liha happily accepted the quest, and Madame Lu reminded him that the delivery lunchbox had a preservation magic on it, so it could last for 3 months straight. But the flavor would get worse over time, so Liha should try to deliver it as quickly as possible. After accepting the quest, the first thing Liha had to do was eat the eagle meat lunchbox. Not to mention it was delicious as hell, the stats it gave were also numerous. After eating his fill, Liha turned his attention to the quest lunchbox. This lunchbox was even more amazing than the one Liha had just eaten. It gave 4 or 5 times the stat boosts. Not only that, it was also tradable, which made Liha's heart skip a beat. He was curious how much money this thing could sell for. Liha tried checking the forums for prices, and an item for a specific class could already sell for 14 million. That lunchbox wasn't limited by class, just eating it could increase your stats, which was enough to understand that its price could be sky high. Liha was shaken. Currently, he was faced with the choice of continuing the mission or embezzling the lunchbox and suffering a decrease in affinity with the NPCs. Liha had no intention of quitting the game early, but now there was a chance to earn 1 million and quit the game. The problem was that the reward for a successful mission was too vague, making it impossible for Liha to weigh which direction would bring more benefits. At this moment, Liha suddenly realized that what Madame Ru meant by being careful of people wasn't about being careful of others, but of Liha himself. Just then, Liha's mother came in. She asked about her son for a bit, and then told him that she would be home late tomorrow night. It's unclear what this cleared up in Liha's mind, but he decided to stop thinking about it and put it aside for good. Liha returned to the game and went to the grocery store owner, but not to bring him the Mai Thui cake. Liha was looking for a wholesaler. While waiting, Liha also inquired about buying a map, but its price was damn expensive, so he decided to criticize it and not buy it anymore. At the same time, the wholesaler arrived. At first glance, this guy was also very young, probably just a little older than Liha at most. Liha and the wholesaler Papu greeted each other very cheerfully. Liha wanted to buy at wholesale price with home delivery. Just as they were discussing money matters, the old grocery store owner suddenly intervened, wanting to separate Liha and Papu. But there was no way to fool Liha. He slipped back and insisted on asking for the price of a wholesale bullet set. After asking, he found out that the grocery store owner was selling it to him at 3 to 4 times the price, and without home delivery, truly deserving of a firing squad. Liha pouted and said he wouldn't go looking for herbs anymore, which made the old shop owner extremely worried. The shop owner begged, saying he would compensate, so Liha should let it go this time. But the problem was, this old man had no gun, no armor, so Liha didn't know what to demand as compensation. When it came to the point where the old man opened his mouth and said to choose one thing from the store, he had already fallen into Liha's trap. He immediately chose the map of the entire kingdom. The shop owner's guts were twisting in pain, but he still had to bite the bullet and give it to Liha. After leaving, Liha was also advised by Popu that he could use the banking system for faster and safer payments in the future. Next, Liha called Kijong, informing him that he was about to head to the city. Kijong was very surprised at how fast his brother was leveling up, and he was also curious if Liha had met Imhwajong yet. Liha was about to boast to his younger brother that if he liked her, he would get her autograph and all that, when Kijong started cursing, wanting to wring the neck of that Im Hwajong girl. All the factions in Hanguk had put out a bounty to hunt down Im Hwajong, which Liha didn't quite understand. Why were they hunting people so aggressively? Kijong's faction once ambushed Im Hwajong, but all the members were suddenly frozen, unable to move, while Im Hwajong leisurely twisted their heads one by one, because being slaughtered like that caused their levels and equipment to drop. Kijong's faction held a deep grudge against Im Hwajong. Not only that, but Hwayeon was also involved. She threw money around, causing chaos in the commercial streets. Currently, 5 factions have joined forces to hunt the Im sisters. Liha suddenly felt confused. He didn't know why things were so complicated. If he joined the Im sisters faction now, he would be confronting his younger brother Kijong. Liha refused to think about it. Instead, he decided to focus on getting to the capital first and figure things out later. Thanks to getting the map as compensation from the old grocery store owner, Liha could navigate much more easily. With a set of equipment and supplies that was almost nothing, Liha began his journey from the village to the city. Liha used his fast-running skill until he ran into a sign, warning of an area with many raid incidents. Right at that moment, a group nearby was fighting a bear. Liha's eyes were opened. It turned out that the professions in the game were quite diverse. While Liha was just chilling, he heard news that someone was recruiting members for a party. They wanted to take down the area's boss. Liha felt that a mixed-bag attack team would easily be crushed by the boss, so it was best not to get involved in this. The leader of the attack group this time was Kim Hwa, a name that sounded cool, just by hearing it. Liha was planning to ignore it and walk straight ahead when he heard someone shouting that the boss had appeared. Well, his curiosity was piqued. It would be a waste not to watch for a bit. Liha thought that attack party was quite good. To be able to do this much in a short time was impressive. Liha was hiding as far as 70 meters away, so he thought nothing would happen to him. But life is full of surprises. The boss bear opened its mouth and let out a roar, still making Liha's limbs go weak. This boss bear was as big as a rabbit. No less, the black-furred rabbit. Once again, Liha felt the helplessness, as his legs were completely numb. He had to wait another 2 minutes for the status effect to be removed. The attack team was in chaos now. Everyone wanted to have their immobility status removed first, while the bear was about to attack in their direction. Just as the bear swung its attack, luckily someone stepped up to block for the whole team. The leader, Kim Hwa, relying on his dual shield skill, was confident he could defend against about 2 more attacks. The bear slapped towards Kim Hwa again. Although he had boosted his defense to the maximum, it seemed he was still done for. His shield was cracked all over. Luckily, at this moment, his attack team had finished gathering and had started to counterattack the bear. The other tanks also moved to the front to form a defensive line in place of Kim Hwa. From a distance, Liha saw that this group had stabilized their formation, and they even had time to joke around with each other. But Kim Hwa wasn't so relaxed. He constantly reminded them that once the bear's HP dropped below 20%, it would change its attack stance. But the temporary party's weakness was also revealed. People couldn't agree with each other. Already many members had stopped fighting seriously, just playing around and waiting for the bear to die. Kim Hwa was still seriously blocking attacks when an arrow flew straight towards the boss. People often say that crowing too early gets you into trouble, and that's never wrong. As soon as the bear's health threshold dropped below 20%, it let out a roar, setting the entire surrounding attack team on fire. All the players instantly became living torches. Only Kim Hwa's group seemed to have brought fire extinguishers from outside and managed to put out the fire, shouting for everyone to retreat. Kim Hwa didn't think much and immediately disbanded the group to flee quickly. As he passed Liha, he didn't forget to tell him to run fast. Liha was confident that if he didn't clash with the bear, it wouldn't do anything to him. But this bear didn't play by the rules. Once it went berserk, it would attack anyone. Now it would take 10 days at the fastest, or a whole month at the slowest, to deal with this boss. Damn, Liha was so pissed. What was with Kim Hwa's group provoking the bear into a frenzy and then just leaving it there? Liha also had an urgent mission. He couldn't be stuck here for a month. He wanted to shoot that flower leaf bud guy a few times. Finding an attack team now was difficult. and waiting for a high-level player to come by and handle it was uncertain. Liha felt extremely frantic. He decided he could only rely on himself. Let's take on that crazy bear alone. Currently, the bear was busy hunting the ones who turned into fire people, so Liha would have some time. Liha got into position, then focused and fired. An iron candy that hit the bear straight in the forehead. At this time, Kim Hwa's group hadn't gone far and also saw Liha shoot the bear. He thought back, too, before wondering if things would have been over if he had invited Liha, or maybe he should quickly form a new team and bring Liha in. With Liha's firing power and range, the other surviving players felt he was someone worth looking forward to. But Kim Hwa denied this. Liha's class took a full minute to reload. With this one-shot-per-minute style, Liha was sure to be doomed next. This time, the black bear didn't die instantly, as Liha usually saw. It just became more enraged and roared, placing a terrifying debuff on Liha. Liha had crowed too early. Now he was trembling while reloading as the bear charged furiously towards him. Liha tremblingly poured gunpowder into the chamber. Luckily, the bear was busy tormenting the remaining attack team, so it saved Liha for last for the time being. Liha felt lucky that the creature wasn't running straight towards him, but with this slow reloading situation, the chance of getting wrecked was still very high. Liha shouted for help, hoping the leader Kim Hwa was still nearby, but his cries only brought disappointment. Out of options, Liha could only put all his faith in himself, hoping the next shot would send that creature to its grave. From a distance, that Kim Hwa guy heard the sound of a gunshot once more. Liha had hit the bear again, another bullet lodged right in its forehead. The two remaining members of the bear boss attack party begged Kim Hwa to think carefully. If they just went back to help Liha a little, they could share the victory loot. But Kim Hwa stubbornly said no means no. Kim Hwa's shields were all broken now, so if he rushed out to help Liha, he would die. And what could the other two do? They weren't tank classes. Were they planning to use their bodies to block attacks? Kim Hwa still insisted on returning to the village to gather more people and come back. After all, he had warned Liha. If he stubbornly stayed, he couldn't be blamed. Right now, Kim Hwa wanted to quickly form a new raid team, then swiftly return to ambush the bear again before it fully recovered. When Kim Hwa's group returned to the village and started recruiting, many people gathered to discuss it noisily. Kim Hwa's recruitment was incredibly easy. After all, a dying boss held a huge attraction. Half an hour later, the new attack team assembled by Kim Hwa returned to the old battle site. But besides the desolate and ruined scenery, they saw nothing else. Kim Hwa guessed the boss might have finished off all the players and crawled away somewhere else, so everyone should split up and search. But 2 hours passed without a single sign of the bear. It was freaking huge, not small like an ant. So how could its figure be nowhere to be seen? The longer it took, the more the other players suspected Kim Hwa was bluffing. If they couldn't find the bear, Kim Hwa was done for. Kim Hwa was also in a panic. He still believed the bear had hidden somewhere, as a musketeer like Liha couldn't possibly defeat that bear. A long time ago, Liha had indeed shot 2 iron balls into the boss bear's head, yet it remained unfazed as if nothing had happened. Liha didn't overthink it. First, he just needed to increase the distance. Liha also saw Kim Hwa's group. He was furious that the culprits who caused this trouble were casually dusting themselves off and leaving. But it was useless for Liha to complain. For now, it was best for him to focus on reloading as quickly as possible while on the move. Liha did everything with great skill, then turned, intending to put another bullet in the bear's head and bid it farewell. But surprise! The creature was now right next to Liha. He didn't have time to react, and had to take a punch from that supergiant bear. Liha rolled a few times on the ground before spitting up blood. Just one slap from the bear was enough to severely injure him. At this moment, Liha was temporarily blind, perhaps due to excessive blood loss. He wanted to use his ears to locate the bear's position, but he couldn't hear anything. That creature was tall, dark, and smelly, yet it moved so quietly. Liha tried to encourage himself not to panic. Although one more slap would kill him, the bear was also very weak. Just one more shot and everything would be over. Liha never thought he would experience being a blind marksman one day, but he remained surprisingly calm. Leah seemed to sense the boss bear's attack and dodged it by a hair's breadth, then pulled the trigger, firing a bullet that pierced through the creature's throat. Leah had no more time to think. He immediately used his gun attack skill, summoning a bayonet on his musket and charging straight at the bear. Leah put on a do-or-die attitude, charging with the bayonet straight towards the bear. Then, using all his remaining strength, he dragged the bayonet sideways, cutting a wound so deep into the boss's chest that bone was visible. What happened next? Leah had no idea because he had already passed out. Leah woke up with a start after fainting for a while. Without even thinking, he knew he had won. Otherwise, there's no way Leah would still be alive to wake up. Countless level-up notification windows popped up in front of Leah. After hunting this brown bear boss, he had hit the jackpot again. Leah couldn't wait and wanted to immediately loot the rewards from the bear. But first, he had to accept his new achievements. First was the I'm the Boss, I Play Solo achievement, and he was also the first person to get it. Next was the Not Afraid of Anyone achievement, which allowed Leah's attack effectiveness to be enhanced by 10%. Finally, there was the Slayer of the Bear King achievement, receiving so many stat points and kingdom merit that it was overflowing. Leah hurriedly brought up his character information window to check. He currently had 135 unassigned attribute points, and his level had jumped straight to 21. Taking advantage of the free time, Leah sat down and distributed his attribute points to significantly boost his combat power. Once that was done, the pile of weapons lying on the ground successfully caught Leah's attention. If this pile of items was left behind, someone else would just pick it up. Leah couldn't let it go to waste like that. It's a bit embarrassing, but he'll probably just pick it all up. Finally, it was the bear's turn. It was time for Leah to carve out the items this creature provided. First, he collected an excellent cape made from fire bear hide. This item boosted defense stats and had good resistance to the fear effect. Moreover, if it was equipped as part of a set, Leah would also receive a certain fire resistance effect. The cape was just the beginning. Next, Leah also collected excellent grade leather boots and a hood made from fire bear hide. Although there were no weapons in this loot, Leah was already very satisfied. Putting on the new set of clothes, Leah looked instantly cooler, like a little girl. A little boy in a Red Riding Hood. And what's more, wearing the set like this significantly increased Leah's fire resistance rate. While Leah was overjoyed to have obtained a full set of equipment and continued his journey, someone else was falling to the bottom of society. It was Kim Hwa. He was suspected of intentionally pushing his teammates to their deaths and then hacking all the dropped weapons. Kim Hwa was mad as hell, but he couldn't clear his name from this false accusation at all. The online community relentlessly attacked Kim Hwa, demanding that he return the equipment to the other players if he had any conscience left. Kim Hwa swore to himself that he must find the person who stole all the items and loot from the fire bear hunt. Otherwise, his false accusation would never be cleared, and he wouldn't dare to play the game anymore. Despite this, Kim Hwa didn't suspect at all that Leah had taken all the spoils. He didn't believe he could have defeated the bear. Meanwhile, Leah was still frolicking in the forest, a perfect little Red Riding Hood playing with a musket. Thinking about his fire resistance, Leah thought of Im Hwa-jung, and thinking of her, Leah was reminded of how his cousin wanted to chop up the Im sisters. Leah took out the map to look. The Emerald Forest and the forest where Gong Gong and Venom went were a bit far from the capital where Leah was heading. As for the place where the two Im sisters were stationed, Mount Jianthi, it was somewhere unknown. It didn't show up on the map. Putting that aside, Leah was feeling a bit hungry now, and when you're hungry, you have to go hunting. What else? Currently, hunting bears was too mundane for him. Leah saw the bears as shooting targets and supplementary food at any time, no longer a life-threatening danger. Leah looked around, and indeed, there was a bear scratching itself against a tree trunk. He aimed for a while and then fired a bullet at the bear. Unfortunately, it missed, which was frustrating. If the first bullet had hit its mark and finished off the opponent, wouldn't both sides have been at ease? Or at least Leah would have been. Leah wondered why the bear didn't dare to charge while he was reloading. But he quickly realized it was due to the effect from his bear hide coat, which created a suppression effect on the bear in front of him. This time, Leah didn't miss. One headshot took down the unlucky bear. Liha cheerfully went to collect the bear meat, and at the same time the figure of a bear cub caught his eye. Damn, it was the first time Liha had ever seen such a cute bear, and it even knew how to act cute with him. This is so dangerous. This creature knows how to deal damage without using force. Liha really couldn't bring himself to harm this bear cub. The little guy wanted to feed the bear a bit, but bear meat was probably not an option. So this little bear would have to make do with bread for now. Liha didn't want to get involved with this bear cub anymore. He was afraid he wouldn't be able to control himself. But the bear was too cute. Liha's mental defenses were crumbling. Liha really didn't know what was the right thing to do with this cute little bear. Liha felt he was hesitating too much, so he contacted his little brother Kijong for some advice. Kijong caringly asked if Liha had reached the capital yet, but traveling by sea would take a long time to get there. Kijong reminded his brother to be careful of the bears, but in reality, it was the bears who needed to be careful of Liha. Along the way, countless bears had already fallen to Liha's musket. Kijun had an exam tomorrow, but right now he had to participate in a raid. Whatever is more important should be prioritized, and Kijong prioritized playing the game first. Liha refused to talk more about this matter. He wanted to know if it was possible to capture and raise animals in this game. Kijong thought his brother wanted to tame a monster and turn it into a battle pet. That was possible, but only if Liha had the beast tamer profession for it to be effective. Because monsters always see humans as enemies without a special method, it's impossible to subdue them. But the bear cub clinging to Liha's leg was very strange. Kijong said that if Liha found a baby monster, it was quite rare, because their HP is lower than adult monsters. But the experience they give is equivalent. So if given the chance, most players would kill the monster to gain experience, meaning that cute thing clinging to Liha's leg was a rich and easy source of experience to harvest. Liha still hadn't decided whether to keep the bear cub or not. For now, he would just continue his journey to the capital. After disconnecting from Kijong, Liha felt it would be a sin to leave this bear cub here alone after he had wiped out its entire family. In the end, this bear was just too cute, so Liha couldn't resist and took it along with him. The next day, after planting a bronze candy between the eyes of a bear, blocking his path, Liha had leveled up to 24. Liha's rapid leveling speed was a good thing, but it seemed it was still not on par with the growth speed of the little bear. While Liha was happily collecting his spoils, a small snake silently approached him and bit his leg. That thing was also venomous. The total blood loss from the snake venom was making Liha gasp for air. After a successful bite, the snake didn't stick around to taunt him, but immediately made a run for it. Just as Liha was getting furious and wanted to find that damn snake for revenge, the little bear quickly bit the culprit that had just attacked its master. Liha was happy that the bear he brought along knew how to avenge its master. But then the little bear Zoa swallowed the snake whole. What shocked Liha even more was that Zoa had only swallowed that tiny snake, yet its size had increased by 1.5 times. At this rate, Liha would be able to ride a bear very soon. And to be precise, he was able to ride the bear the very next day. Zoa must have eaten some growth-enhancing feed, otherwise how could it grow so fast? But Zoa growing up so fast also brought trouble. In just one day, it had almost been attacked more than 6 times by players who accidentally encountered it. Liha decided to make a name tag for the little guy Zoa, but it looked really dumb. It was best that when he saw other players, Liha proactively cleared things up for his pet quickly. Seeing Zoa playfully nibbling on Liha's head scared the other players out of their wits. Everyone ran for their lives. As Liha was preparing to leave this place, he heard other players talking about him. The story was that there was someone who didn't bother riding a horse but rode a bear, and on top of that, played a gun-using class. Don't laugh at him for riding a bear. This bear ran pretty fast. It was no different from Liha having a 4-legged supercar in the game. Just like that, it only took 2 days for Liha to reach the capital. Although upon arriving, Liha chose to walk Zoa instead of riding it. However, it still scared the players in the capital to death due to the sudden appearance of a massive monster. No matter how Liha explained, the players wouldn't listen. Even the NPCs had set up a defensive line to attack the bear walking beside him at any moment. Seeing the opponent ignore all his warnings, Liha had no choice but to pull out his musket to threaten them. He aimed precisely at the trajectory of the magic attacks, then fired without hesitation. It's unknown whether Liha's bronze candy had any effect compared to the magical attacks of other players. One would think there would be an epic showdown between bronze candy and magic. But just then, a guy appeared and used his skill to completely nullify the attacks of Liha and the other players. While Liha was still shocked that his attack was nullified so easily, a few young men in uniform armor approached, telling Liha to calm down. This is the capital, not a market where anyone can cause trouble. The young men who just appeared were the secret knights. They seemed to have a lot of influence in this capital. They wanted Liha to put his gun down because this brawl started from a misunderstanding, so the knights wouldn't punish anyone. But if Liha still stubbornly wanted to attack people, the knights would attack him too. Well, it's acknowledged that the other players started the brawl, but in the end, it was all Liha's fault, or at least his battle pets. If you say so, I give up. Fine, Liha will just put the gun down. The knights also declared that the group of players who broke the rules by using magic in the capital did so with the intention of protecting the citizens, so they were just dispersed. Liha was about to call his beloved bear to leave with him when the knights called him back, saying the matter wasn't over yet. Liha warned them up front if they were calling him over to ambush him or harm his beloved bear. There was no way that would happen. The knight was really pissed off, but he still had to say something to temporarily earn Liha's trust. He also had his eyes opened, seeing the very elaborate way the knights talked. Everyone greeted each other with the surname Seo in front. Was this knightly order a single family or something? After Liha was led away by another knight, the knight who had blocked the attack earlier finally showed his curiosity towards Liha. To be able to shatter the knight's blocking magic, he was no ordinary person. As for Liha, he received a notification for a new achievement thanks to the knights giving him their word of honor. Thanks to this, Liha's reputation on the continent immediately increased by 50 points. Before this, Liha had to grind like crazy just to get 30 continental reputation points. Yet, just by getting noticed by the knights in the capital, he had already earned 50 reputation points. At this time, the guiding knight had led Liha to a corner of the city wall and then asked him what he intended to do with his bear. Liha thought he was being tricked again, but the knights really didn't intend to attack him and the bear. He was a member of the honor guard at the Candle Castle, so he probably wouldn't cause chaos in the capital with his bear. It's just that the information about Liha taming a bear as a battle pet without being a beast tamer caught everyone's attention. Some people even bet on whether Liha's bear could evolve to the boss level and become a fire bear. The knights understood that the bear Zoa wouldn't attack humans, but it was still not allowed to enter the capital. Regardless of whether Zoa was tamed or not, its mere presence was enough to cause chaos. The most appropriate solution now was that Liha had to let Zoa return to nature if he still wanted to enter the capital. Liha also knew that walking Zoa around on the streets would cause a lot of trouble. Originally, he hadn't used any tools or skills to tame Zoa at all. It just followed Liha. If Liha ignored the knight's warning and wanted to take Zoa everywhere, his beloved bear would surely be in danger. Liha felt that letting Zoa return to nature was also a good option. Before leaving, the knights wanted to ask for Liha's name, then sprouted wings on their backs and shot straight up into the sky. Liha led the bear Zoa until late at night, reaching the edge of the forest before letting Zoa leave on its own. Zoa hugged Liha tightly and wouldn't let go, making him recall the happy times since he met this bear. This wasn't good. Liha would become too attached. He broke free from Zoa's embrace and then sternly shooed it away. Zoa was abandoned. Zoa got angry, so Zoa lunged forward and bit Liha's hand. Just as Liha was about to get furious, not understanding why Zoa bit him, the creature licked the little bit of blood from Liha's hand. Then a powerful light erupted, blinding Liha. It turned out Zoa didn't go crazy and bite Liha. It just wanted to do that to establish a soul link with him. Zoa just needed to swallow a little of Liha's blood, provided it was voluntary. And just like that, Liha had completely become Zoa's master. The system announced that Liha was the third person to achieve the soulmate achievement. If he could achieve this 3 times, he would be recorded in the Hall of Honor as well. After signing the contract, it was still time for the farewell scene. The bear, Zoa, cried its eyes out, really not wanting to leave its master. Liha instructed Zoa to live well and not get hunted, but considering its build was only slightly less than the boss's, Zoa was the hunter. At this moment, Liha also gained a new skill, allowing him to summon his battle bear back for about half an hour to fight. This way, Liha just needed to release Zoa into the wild to let it grow on its own for a while longer. When that time comes, Liha could summon a whole boss bear to ambush his opponents. After settling Zoa in the forest, it took Liha almost a whole day to find his way back to the capital again. Who could blame him? He was worried Zoa might get hunted near the capital, so he led it very far away. The capital was far more crowded and bustling than the beginner's area where Liha had previously stayed, but because of that, he felt that finding his younger brother Kijong was like looking for a needle in a haystack. After contacting him, Kijong said he had been waiting at the south gate for his brother since morning, but this was a tough case. Liha had no sense of direction and didn't know where the hell the south gate was. This was clearly Kijong teasing his older brother. There was no south gate on the map. Besides, he was standing right behind Liha. Liha didn't say much and flew in to give his little brother a beating. It was only then that he noticed his little brother was decked out in top-tier gear from head to toe. A long-time player for sure. Kijong really enjoyed Liha's admiring gaze. Then he also became a little curious. Liha's gear seemed a bit too good. Was he a player who paid to win, or did he go around robbing others? Just then, a young man dressed like a mage approached and introduced himself as Hen. He seemed quite familiar with Liha's information, and it was all because Kijong had talked about his older brother revealing everything. Another young man approached Liha and quickly recognized the cape he was wearing as a rare item that could only be obtained by defeating the bear boss. This young man introduced himself as Sasuke, and his interface looked exactly like his idol's. Suddenly, this young man, Sasuke remembered that recently the story of the bear boss getting beaten up was trending online, and the person who did it was standing right in front of everyone. Kijong introduced everyone to Liha one by one and said that if he needed any help, he just had to ask. Kijong wanted to arrange a power leveling session for Liha, but when he heard his brother say he had already reached level 25, he and his teammates were in utter disbelief. The musketeer class was thought to be very hard to level up. Kijong had to ask again if Liha was lying about his level, but why would Liha need to do that? The players in the same faction as Kijong realized Liha was no ordinary person and immediately wanted to add him as a friend to get closer to him. Kijong's band of brothers, after friending Liha, asked for leave to go first, letting Kijong guide Liha first. Kijong took Liha out for a meal and was shocked to hear that his brother had soloed and sent the bear boss to its grave. After all, the musketeer's attack power was the highest among all professions, as long as there was enough time to cast skills, and the attacks were critical hits. Soloing the boss was feasible. But actually, it wasn't exactly a solo by Liha. It was thanks to the previous bear boss attack group that drew its attention, allowing him to shoot a few bullets into its head first to gain an advantage. Speaking of which, Liha was really reckless back then. In Kijong's faction there was an archer player whose damage was quite good, but his maximum range was only 66 meters. Liha recounted that he had to fire 3 shots. In the end, he even risked his life using the gun stock as a weapon to finally take down the bear boss. And what truly made Kijong's eyes pop in surprise was that Liha had disdained using the support system. He said that if he used the support system, his hands and feet would be tied, making it very uncomfortable. With the system off, Liha could hit a target's head from 100 meters away and still land a headshot. Hearing this, Kijong could no longer remain calm. He hurriedly invited Liha to join the faction he was in. If a talent like Liha wasn't recruited quickly, another faction would snatch him away. The musketeer was already a rare class, and one as powerful as Liha was probably countable on one hand. Kijong's offer sounded tempting, but what if Liha said no? Liha preferred the path of a powerful solo player who could take on the world. Kijong couldn't accept. Liha temporarily putting his offer aside to think about later. He summoned his faction's cape, and then crying asked if Liha really didn't know the name of the Starlight faction. Well, Liha apologized. It was true he really didn't know about this faction. What did Kijong expect from a new player? Hearing that Kijong felt completely helpless. The faction he joined was quite famous and reputable. The leader of the Starlight faction, Hen, was even honored to be on TV, and that mage guy was ranked 8th in Hanguk. That was probably why Kijong was so proud of his faction. And that guy's world rank was around 40. Hearing that Liha lost all interest, he was even invited to join a faction by the 9th-ranked player in the world and was still considering it. Let alone Kijong's faction, Liha changed the subject to Kijong, who had only reached the top 100 in Hanguk. Kijong was also very proud of his ranking, boasting that he was an invincible tank player and all that. Look at Kijong's arrogant attitude. Liha really wanted to plant a bronze candy right in the middle of his beloved little brother's forehead,